Now, you will not be strangers to Aston Martin's first mid-engined production car, the Valkyrie, the ultra-rare, ultra-expensive, ultra-exclusive mid-engined hypercar. But what if there was a car which gave something between that and the rest of the Aston Martin range? Well, here it is. It's called the AMRB 003 RB because Red Bull are still involved. It is still very exclusive, 500 will be made. Very expensive, we think about £1 million, but we're not entirely sure yet. Why does it sit between the Valkyrie and the rest of the range? Well, because Aston Martin is not just launching one new mid-engine car at Geneva, it is launching two. There is the Vision Vanquish Concept, a production car, unlimited series production car that will arrive in 2022. Right, let's start with the 003 because it's where I am, and let's start at the front because that's also where I am. You may notice this badge is not a fixed badge, it is acid etched because that saves weight, and this car is predominantly about track performance as much as anything else. So when you look at its design, it is not as pleasingly perhaps styled as the Vanquish because it is about going rather quickly. With no vents at the front, you can see quite a long way underneath the car. A lot of this car's aerodynamics happens underneath it, but you can't see from front to back like you could on a Valkyrie. There's a reason for that. One of the reasons is because, although Aston is still deciding where exactly to put the batteries, the chances are some will go underneath the floor. This car is a hybrid, and as well as the new 3-litre twin-turbocharged V6 being hybridised, there is also a hybrid element to the front axle. So it is a four-wheel drive car. As you move further back, you may notice that the doors swing up kind of dihedrally rather than gull-wing fashion as a Valkyrie. That makes it a bit easier to get in and out of. We'll come to the interior in a moment. Behind that, this is where that engine and gearbox and hybridisation will sit. You can't see out the back of it. There is a camera system that does work instead. And underneath here is Aston Martin's first Aston-designed, Aston-engineered, Aston-built engine since quite a long time ago. And finally, you come right at the back to a carbon fibre spoiler. So the wing doesn't actually lift up itself. There are actuators within the carbon fibre wing itself, so it moves. It's incredibly clever aerospace technology. Now, this car's about 2 years from production, but it does have a slightly representative interior. So let's have a look inside. So welcome to the interior. There is so much to tell you about in here. It is extraordinary. So I'm sitting in a leg up driving position, a bit like the Valkyrie, I think, to that extent, but there's more room in here. There's more shoulder room, there's more elbow room, there's more headroom, and that's allowed because it's not a car that is trying to hit that 1,000-kilogram curb weight of the Valkyrie, but there are similarities. To keep the cockpit narrow, frontal area is really key to performance. So instead of my view out being ended by the A-pillars, the pillars come halfway down, and actually this, I get a brilliant view. I think in terms of placing the car on the road, or more likely on a track, that'll be really quite cool. There is a fixed H point, so I'm sat right here, but the seat back does go upright and the pedals and wheel will come to me rather than me going to them. And the general interior ambience is extraordinary, really extraordinary. Aston says, quite rightly, it wouldn't be appropriate if there was lashings of wood and leather in a car like this. Instead, it's a much more minimal thing, and instead of having individual vents plopped here and there, you get this real big sweeping swage of 3D printed carbon all around the outside, and the loudspeakers for the stereo and the vents will be filtered into that. Finally then, what do you do with all of the infotainment system that would sit on a big chunk in the middle of the car? Well, it's still to be decided, and Aston's having these conversations with customers and stakeholders, as I think the corporates speak. Given that your smartphone does so much of this stuff anyway, why not just put everything through that rather than have a big bank of panels that will become redundant in a couple of years anyway? It's a fabulous driving environment. It's just like no Aston before, but it makes absolute perfect sense. And this then is the Vanquish Vision Concept. This is not a limited run production car. This is the car that sits at the top of Aston Martin's 7-strong range. This completes effectively Aston Martin's second century plan, and the idea is you have 7 models and you replace one every single year, and once it's finished you start again. This sits at the top of the sporty range. It will go up against whatever Ferrari's 488 replacement is called and whatever the McLaren 720S has become by that point. The engine is in the middle. It is this V6 twin turbocharged supercharged car of unspecified capacity and unspecified power. We don't have a huge amount of details on it so far. I can tell you it will be hybridised, it will be rear-wheel drive, but as befits a car that fits in with a regular range, so some of the design cues you will be slightly familiar with already, such as this strip that sort of blends the front and the wings. It has these expressive haunches that you might remember from the current Vanquish S, as well as the lip at the back and the big chrome strip around the rear. Hard to imagine really, when you've seen Astons of the last 20, 30, 50 years, that this car will be on the road in just 3 years' time. So we'll have loads more on these cars, we'll have loads more from the Geneva Motor Show, we'll have loads more on all cars from everywhere. We're here all the time, so if you like, subscribe and turn on notifications, you'll never miss a thing.